So, Bob, you talk now about the solutions that are being pursued by projects affiliated with the Woodson Center. Can we talk about some of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
work?
yeah. Thanks, man. Um, well, first of all, as part of our essays that you and other scholars are helping us, we're looking back, Len, at saying when whites were at their worst, blacks were at their best. We talked about the fact that there's this myth that somehow the problems we're facing today are related to the legacy of slavery and discrimination. Well, we point out in Chicago, for instance, in 1929, during the height of segregation and Jim Crow, blacks established the Black Wall Street there, 731 black-owned businesses, 100 million in real estate assets, out of wedlock birth, under 10%. And there are other cities where these kinds of developments occur. And so it's important for our people to be motivated to know that when whites were at their worst, we were at our best. And so what we're doing is taking those old values that promote and then apply them today in the urban centers.
Another of the projects at the Woodson Center that I have had some connection with is the Voices of Black Mothers United, and led by Sylvia Bennett Stone, the remarkable woman who's I've interviewed here. Tell us about that, Bob.
Well, the, what it is that the biggest crisis facing this country today is a moral and spiritual crisis that is consuming children through suicide, homicide, and opiate addiction. And so Sylvia lost her daughter, at age 19 to a drive-by shooting. But she took that grief and turned it into leadership. And so we have supported her. She's organized a group of Voices of Black Mothers United. There are now thousands of them have joined and all over the country. And they are standing up and saying, we are against those who are talking about defunding the police. There are models. I heard her on your show. For instance, in 5 cities, we have black mothers hired by the police department, so they respond to a murder scene because that's where the trust gets challenged of the police. So they act as a liaison between the police and the community.
Can I can I just underscore what you're saying? So this Sylvia Bennett Stone is an African American woman, and she lost her child to gun violence in a black community, et cetera. So that's an inner city problem. That's sort of quote unquote a black problem. Mothers in Appalachia or someplace else whose kids are using opioids and who are overdosing and are dying are losing their children. Under the auspices of the Woodson Center, these white mothers losing their children to drug assault and these black mothers perhaps losing their children to gun violence are coming together to talk about how mothers deal with the trauma of losing their children. This is remarkable, Bob. This is really wonderful.
But there's a third element, and that is people don't realize that in Silicon Valley, where they're uh, where they're most 96% are two-parent households with master's degree with a median income of 180,000. The suicide rate among teenagers is 6 times the national average. So you can't say to a mom living there who lost a 17-year-old daughter to suicide that somehow she's privileged, and a woman in losing their daughter in the black community is somehow uh, 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 racial injustice is the biggest challenge she faced. No, what we are facing is a moral and spiritual crisis that our young people are devaluing life. And if you devalue your life, then you will take your own or someone else's. And so when our moms come together, we can share strategies for filling that hole that is in the hearts of our children and that causes them to devalue their life to the point where they'll either take their own or take someone else's. And by coming together and putting race aside, if we have to look at ourselves through the racial prism, it'll prevent us from coming together with real solutions as to how to fill that empty space in the children and children's lives. And so we really think that this is the only way, Glenn, we can push the race issue off the table. But
The moral and spiritual crisis afflicting young people in America knows no class bound and it knows no racial bound.
no,
And that's the root of the problem you're saying, and it sounds pretty good to me. Pastor Corey Brooks of Chicago. I just heard that he's camped out on the roof of a building and he's been up there. He's going to be up there for 100 days. Is that that's the story? This is one of your associates as well. Tell us a little bit about what he's doing in my hometown.
Corey Brooks is a pastor there who's is a real soldier, and this is the second time he's been on the roof. There was a
He's living up there
living up there.
24/7.
He's just raised $1 million, man. He's met his goal. And he wants to build a facility in the community to help restore it. He has two ex-gang members who are working with him, who's, once their character changes, the characteristic has an advantage. And so Corey is working with them and others. Again, he is an example of a healing agent, or Joseph, who is collectively they represent a whole immune system, and that's why what Corey is trying to do is heal that community from within the body of the community. That the healing agents are already abides in the community. And what he's trying to do is get the resources that he needs, so he can help the Chicago heal from the inside out and from the bottom up.
Project Hood, helping others obtain their destiny.
But he,
I think that's pretty good. John Ponder out in Las Vegas. This is another one of your affiliates who's doing some remarkable stuff. Tell us about what he's doing.
John Ponder was a man who was in and out of jail from the time he was 14. And he's the only one that I know was facing. Usually when you come for sentencing, you're in the city jail. Well, he was in solitary confinement. But he found Christ there, and not like a lot of people. I tell people, you find Christ in prison and you leave him at the door, he'll be there when you come back. But John Ponder is somebody who found Christ in that situation. I came before the judge and said, do what you have to do. But, and the judge sentenced him to, instead of 27 years that he was scheduled, he got 7 years. And when John came into this maximum security prison, sometimes when you come in, you got to face what they call the table. You got to choose what gang you want to join. And John came before them and said, I belong to Christ, but I know what the deal is. Do what you have to do. So he turned his back, expecting to be knifed when they let him go. But then he had to confront loneliness. But then gang members started to come to say, can you pray for my brother? Can you pray for my sister? Long story short, when John got out, he established Hope for Prisoners. The persons that first came around him as partners was the FBI agent that locked him up, the U.S. attorney who prosecuted him, and the judge who sentenced him. They became his mentor team, which again is out of the box. And since then, John ministers to people in prison and helps them when they get out. And he has now reached over 3,000 people, helped them connect to jobs. 40% of his mentors are police officers and members of law enforcement who locked up the very people that they're now mentoring. And so John has and as a consequence of this relationship, a violent assault interactions between the minority community and police are dramatically down because
in Las
Vegas.
Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground, Bob. I'd like to close by making an announcement, if I may, because I've been thinking for a while here at the Glenn Show about the great blessings that we've enjoyed with the success of the show, with the subscribers at Substack, with the advertising revenue that's coming in from the YouTube channel and so forth. And when we first started out, we didn't have enough money. We barely could keep the lights on. I got a nice microphone here. I used to have a little crappy microphone, and we got production team that helps to make the show look good, and creative director and the editor at the newsletter and whatnot. These guys got to be paid and whatnot. And I came to you with my hand out, Bob, actually saying, "Could you help me?" And you guys were kind enough at the Woodson Center to show some love for a brother over here, even if I am a professor and not a grassroots leader. And I'd like to return the favor. I want the world to know I'm committed to tithing
Oh, man.
from the net proceeds of the Glenn Show. We are going to give 10% of the net revenues of the Glenn
Oh,
Show
man.
to the Woodson Center to underwrite some of these initiatives that you have heard being described here today. And further than that, I'd like to, if people are willing, over the course of the next months and years, share this platform and talk with some of these people about their work so that my audience and the broader public can learn more about solutions to some of these problems inspired by faith, carried out by heroic souls who are laboring in the vineyards to try to bring comfort and hope. He says, helping others obtain their destiny. This is Corey Brooks in Chicago, but he's, in that respect, no different than John Ponder, and he's no different than Sylvia Bennett Stone and all the others in bringing hope to these people. I want to be a part of that, Bob, if you'll help me.
Glad God bless you, man. And you've always been there for us, man. And I'm speechless. And that's hard for me.